In life, we have landmark events that shape our character and can show us on how helpless we can be in certain times. But as each one of us goes through these landmark events in our lives, it's important to learn the fine lessons so that we will be equipped with new emotional as well as physical tools to keep us going further down the trail of life. And usually when these life landmarks in our lives show up, they show up unannounced and almost surprise us, like it did on a surf trip with my buddy Jesse on September 13th, 2014. And it just so happened we had no cell service for the last 3 to 4 days while just exploring the East Cape as well as the Pacific side of Baja California. And again, it couldn't get much better. Warm sun, warm water, good friend in hand. It was literally unimaginable what was about to happen. Here's a pic of Jesse with us leaving Los Cerritos after a 4-day surfing trip. It's Sunday morning, and again, with no cell service, we were leaving to fly back home. Things changed real quick as we entered the Cabo area where Jesse's cell phone rang. And at first, it was kind of a shock because we haven't heard a cell phone ring in days. It's a weird feeling. As I watched him speak on the phone, with not knowing who's on the other end, thinking maybe it's his wife because we haven't checked in with our wives in the last few days. Ultimately, just to be shocked as his mouth dropped open, it was the airlines canceling our flights that morning. As we came around the Cape, we saw a little pull-off view area, a lookout point, with tons of cars. So we pulled over, and what we saw next blew our minds. On asking one of the American tourists standing next to me, she says, "You guys haven't heard?" And I'm like, "No. There's a hurricane that's going to hit Cabo directly on in about 8 hours." And just like that, this trip made a turn for the worst. A week ago, before arriving in Cabo, there was a tropical depression off the coast of mainland Mexico. But at no point did I watch it, and again, not having cell service didn't even educate me that the storm had turned into a full-blown hurricane. Here at 2 p.m., you can see it's already a Category 3. And just like anybody going through this for the first time, you're going to make mistakes. Like, look at the smart choice of foods me and Jesse decide to get. Well, mainly on my part. Chips, cookies, cup of noodles. But again, what are you going to do? This is the first time that I've ever been through a hurricane. With both anxiety and excitement, as well as being turned down by other hotels, we found a little motel in the old town of San Jose del Cabo where we watched Hurricane Odile gain strength and arrive in Baja. Hurricane Odile, Jesse, Mexico surf trip, 2014. I have to admit, we were a little excited because both of us have never even seen or been in any kind of hurricane. But because of lack of communication services left and were being knocked out in Cabo at the time, Hurricane Odile was now a Category 4. As the streets emptied and we saw less people out and about, it started to sink in that we were in for a wild ride. But with about a few cup of noodle soups, a couple bags of chips, and a case of water, we were thinking we're going to fly home the next day and everything was going to be fun and dandy. Oh, by the way, see those radio antennas behind Jesse? Remember those. As the trees started to bend and the winds pick up with fury, it was time to get shelter inside Hotel Collie. It's interesting on how symptoms build up in your mind when you're going through something like this. Everything from we have to get food, we have to get shelter, to even roadblocks that pop up. Hey, you can't stay here. Nope, we're out of food, we're closed. To even when the power was finally knocked out in the whole area of Cabo. This kind of stuff triggers anxiety, panic, but what's important is to stay calm. But even as me and Jesse kept a sense of calm, the symptoms always keep repeating themselves. Now we have no cell service at all, no Wi-Fi, no communication. And then finally, what really tries to trigger you into a panic mode is when the hotel manager comes down and tells you it's time to stay inside, I'm going to lock the front doors. And with nothing but the sound of twisting metal, objects hitting the side of the motel, to glass breaking, it's a very eerie feeling. Here's the model of Hurricane Odile hitting Cabo straight on later that night, as me and Jesse bunkered down in one of the center rooms of Hotel Collie. Hurricane Odile. Ceiling's leaking, and we have no power, and it's 12 a.m. and we're tired. We got trash cans collecting the water, and the window's about to break. With the bathroom toilet flushing on its own, with water seeping out of the walls and dripping from everywhere in our room, to those curtains hanging on the window that got sucked out when Jesse cracked the window, where at one point the winds outside of the hotel felt like there was 1,000 turbine jets going on all at once. And just to note, our room was on the first floor, so the water is seeping through the roof, through the second floor, into our room. As the eye passed over us and eventually the storm headed north, we were pretty much thinking that the next day when we woke up, Cabo wasn't going to be there. I'm not sure what affected me the most, if it was the palm tree being thrown into somebody's house, or if it was most of everything be thrown out into the ocean, but this little kid's bicycle stayed put, but all kinds of wire and cables were wrapped around it like a present. There's one of those radio towers.
No, it's flooded right here. We have to walk in water.
As sewers overflowed into the streets, and the smell was unbearable, to even brand new hotels like this one, just devastated. But the most troubling part was on how I watched human beings act as panic kind of just spread just like a virus. People just started not acting as moral as they would be when everything's okay. on when I walked into this convenience store and American tourists as well as Mexican citizens were looting and taking whatever they can for themselves.
I'm going outside.
There's too much stories, miracles, and great inspiration to tell you in a video or even a couple videos on YouTube. Not knowing for a few days whether we were going to go home, the Mexican government got planes to fly U.S. residents out of the region. And you're probably asking, well, how did they do that? Well, they flew in a couple military planes and flew us out. The thoughts in my head as we flew home on the Mexican military jet was, I'm gonna write this stuff all down right when I get home. And I did. And it's taken me up to 5 years to decide how I want to present it as a story to people. And I think using a few different platforms is the solution, with this video being the first one. And the second, the podcast me and Jesse did where we talk about this trip again. I'll leave a link in the description box below. But I think the best medium for me to tell the story, the full story of this trip, is in the book. And yeah, I know it's been 5 years, but I want to make sure it's right, because there was a lot of different things that just won't come across great on video or on a podcast. Hey, hit that subscribe button. You don't want to miss the next video. Also, check out the description box below. I got a lot of things in there, a lot of resources you guys can check out. And that's it. We'll see you on the next video. See ya.